The jet tore across the sky like a wounded bird screaming metal and fire against the perfect blue. Jack Donovan looked up from the fishing line he was untangling, for his son muscle memory already calculating trajectory impact point and survival chances. 10 years since he'd needed those skills. 10 years trying to forget them. Ben's voice came small and confused. Dad, what's that noise? Jack's mind flipped through decision trees, each branch ending with his son safe. Nothing else mattered. The private jet, one engine already gone, the other failing, would hit the water in seconds. 300 yards out near the eastern shore of Lake Clearwater. Stay in the boat. Call 911. His voice calm but leaving no room for argument as he stripped off his jacket, kicked off his boots. Do not leave this boat, Ben. Do you understand me? Ben nodded, eyes wide with fear but steady. The boy had his mother's courage. The water hit Jack like 1,000 needles, shocking his system. He'd forgotten how cold Montana lakes stayed even in summer. His muscles protested, then surrendered to the familiar discipline as he cut through the water with powerful strokes. Behind him, Ben's voice carried across the lake, small but clear, talking to emergency services. The jet's impact had created a crater of white foam and debris. Jack dove beneath the surface, vision adjusting to the murky darkness. The cockpit windows were spider-webbed with cracks, water already filling the cabin. Inside, a woman slumped against the controls, dark hair floating around her face, a gash on her forehead, leaking tendrils of blood into the water. The door wouldn't budge. Jack surfaced for air, then dove again, driving his elbow into the weakest point of the cracked glass. Pain exploded up his arm, but the window gave. He reached through the opening, unfastened the woman's seatbelt, and pulled her free as the cabin filled completely. Breaking the surface, he held her head above water, with one arm swimming backward toward shore. His lungs burned, muscles screaming with every stroke. The woman wasn't moving. Jack didn't allow himself to think she might already be gone. Not after he'd reached her. Not after everything. His feet found purchase on the rocky lake bottom. He dragged her onto the shore, immediately checking for a pulse. Faint, but there. Jack tilted her head back, cleared her airway, and began chest compressions. 28, 29, 30. He breathed into her mouth, tasting lake water and something faintly sweet, expensive perfume. Water gushed from her mouth as she coughed violently. Her eyes flew open, startlingly green, sharp with intelligence, even through the haze of pain and confusion. They locked onto his face with unexpected intensity. You saved my life. Her voice was raspy but carried undeniable authority. Then with narrowed eyes, you cured me because you know who I am, didn't you? Jack said nothing, already scanning the shoreline. Emergency vehicles were arriving in worse news vans, camera lenses turning toward them like predators, scenting blood. I need to get back to my son. Jack was already backing away, calculating the fastest route to his boat while avoiding the gathering crowd. Wait, the woman tried to sit up, wincing in pain. I don't even know your name. Jack was already gone, slipping through the trees along the shoreline. He could reach his boat from the north side, away from the commotion. He had saved a life today. He couldn't afford to have his face plastered across the news. Some ghost should stay buried. Later that evening, Ben sat at their kitchen table, homework spread before him, but his attention fixed on the small television in the corner. Jack moved to turn it off, then stopped as his own blurry image appeared on screen. The reporter's voice filled their small cabin. The mysterious hero who rescued tech billionaire Victoria Reed from her crashed private jet remains unidentified. Reed, CEO of Reed Technologies, has issued a public plea from her hospital bed. The image cut to a hospital room where the woman from the lake sat propped against pillows. Despite the bandage on her forehead and the hospital gown, she somehow maintained an aura of command. I owe my life to this man. Her green eyes seemed to stare directly at Jack through the screen. If he's watching, I want him to come forward. Not for publicity, but because I need to thank him properly. Jack's stomach nodded. Properly. That meant money attention questions. He'd had enough experience with the wealthy and powerful to know their gratitude always came with strings attached. Dad, you're a hero. Ben's face shone with pride. Are you going to talk to her? Time for bed, buddy. Jack tousled his son's hair, deflecting the question. 8-year-olds shouldn't have to understand why their fathers needed to stay invisible. After tucking Ben in, Jack sat alone in the dark, nursing a beer he didn't really want. The cabin was quiet except for the occasional creak of settling wood. He'd built it himself 5 years ago after deciding Montana was far enough from his past. Enough land for privacy, close enough to town for Ben to have a normal childhood. As normal as possible without a mother. Jack moved to his bedroom, knelt beside the bed, and pulled out a locked metal box. Inside lay a Glock 19 3 passports with different names and several bundles of cash. Beneath these, a sealed waterproof pouch containing old photos and a small USB drive, disguised as a house key. Insurance, though, using it would mean the end of everything he'd built here. He tucked the box away and checked on Ben, watching his son's chest rise and fall in the peaceful rhythm of childhood sleep. Even after 3 years, Jack sometimes saw Kate in the boy's face so clearly it stole his breath. What would she think of the life he'd made for their son? A life built on secrets and vigilance, always looking over his shoulder. 2 days passed. Jack threw himself into work, finishing a custom dining table for the Henderson family. Woodworking had started as cover something ordinary and respectable to explain his income and occupation. Somewhere along the way, it had become a kind of meditation. The honest relationship between effort and outcome. The way wood forgave mistakes if you knew how to work with its grain instead of against it. People weren't so forgiving. The knock came as Jack was cleaning up his workshop. Ben was at a friend's house for dinner. Small blessings. Jack approached the door cautiously, hand instinctively reaching for the knife in his pocket. A black SUV with tinted windows sat in his driveway. Government plates. The woman from the lake stood on his porch. Victoria Reed. No bodyguards visible, though Jack knew they must be nearby. Her head was still bandaged, but she'd exchanged the hospital gown for a simple black pantsuit that probably cost more than his monthly expenses. Her eyes were the same, too intelligent, too assessing. "Mr. Donovan, may I come in?" She didn't wait for an answer, stepping past him into the cabin. "You're a difficult man to find. Took 3 private investigators." "I don't want money." Jack's voice came harder than intended. "I don't want publicity. I want you to leave and forget you found me." She studied him with clinical interest, like a scientist observing an unexpected experimental result. "You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of what me being here means." She moved to his kitchen table, running manicured fingers along the wood grain. "Beautiful work. You built this." Jack remained by the door. "What do you want Ms. Reed first to thank you? Second, to satisfy my curiosity about a man who would risk his life for a stranger, then disappear without a trace." She reached into her jacket and Jack tensed, but she only produced a business card, placing it on the table. "My private number. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call. When the day comes that you need help, and that day always comes, Mr. Donovan, you'll have someone who owes you her life. Fair trade, wouldn't you say?" She walked back to the door, stopping so close he could smell that same faint perfume from the lake. "You have a beautiful home and a wonderful son. Ben isn't it, 8 years old, top of his class in science. His mother died of cancer 3 years ago." Jack's blood went cold. His hand moved back to the knife. Victoria smiled, the expression not quite reaching her eyes. "I needed to know who saved me. Don't worry, your secrets are yours. Consider the background check professional courtesy." She stepped outside, then turned back. "I meant what I said about the phone number. Use it if you need to. We all need allies, especially those of us with complicated pasts." She walked to her SUV and was gone before Jack could process what had happened. He locked the door, checked the windows, then slumped against the wall. Heart hammering, she knew. How much he couldn't be sure, but enough to be dangerous. He stared at the business card on the table, then tucked it into his wallet behind Kate's photo. Just in case. That night, as rain tapped gently against the roof, Jack's phone rang. Unknown number. His instinct was to ignore it, but something made him answer. "Turn on CNN, now." Victoria Reed's voice, urgent and commanding. The headline made Jack's blood freeze. "Mystery hero identified billionaire savior has dark past." His face filled the screen sharper than the blurry image from before. The anchor was mid-sentence. Questions about where he's been for the past decade. Sources suggest connections to private military contractor Atlas Security with operations in conflict zones worldwide. Jack ended the call without speaking. His mind raced through contingency plans. The go bags were packed, the emergency fund accessible. He could have Ben and himself across the Canadian border before morning. He was halfway to Ben's room when he heard it. A car engine coming up the mountain road at 2 a.m. headlights off. Not the rumble of Victoria Reed's SUV, but the purr of something German precision engineered. Jack grabbed the Glock from its hiding place and positioned himself with clear sight lines to the door of Ben's room safely behind him. The knock came 3 times, deliberately spaced. A code from another life. Jack Donovan. The voice was smooth, cultured, with the faintest trace of Boston. "I know you're in there. I know your son's upstairs." Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in years, pure, undiluted fear. Not for himself, but for Ben. "You have 60 seconds before every asset Atlas has knows your location. Open the door, Jack." Or should I call you Marcus? I opened the door, gun held low but ready. Robert Caldwell stood on the porch, silver hair immaculate despite the hour's smile, as practiced as ever. He wore a tailored overcoat against the Montana chill, looking more like a CEO than the leader of a private army specializing in operations no government wanted to acknowledge. "You look good." Caldwell's eyes flicked past Jack, taking in the cabin. "Boy's name is Ben, 8 years old, smart kid. You've done well raising him alone." Jack's jaw tightened. "If you touch him—" Caldwell's smile vanished, replaced by something colder. "I'm offering you a choice. You still have the files. The ones you stole 10 years ago. Names, dates, mission logs, everything that could turn Atlas into a congressional inquiry and me into a federal prisoner. I want them back. In exchange, I walk away. Your son grows up safe. You build your—" He gestured at the cabin with faint disdain. "Furniture. We pretend the last decade never happened." Jack kept his voice level, the gun steady. "And if I refuse," Caldwell pulled out a phone, held up a photo of Ben's elementary school, time-stamped that afternoon. "I know where he goes. When he goes, who picks him up. Everything. You have 72 hours to deliver those files to a location I'll text you. If you don't—" Caldwell shrugged the gesture, almost apologetic. "Your son disappears. Not permanently, just long enough to convince you I'm serious. Maybe he comes back missing a finger. Maybe he doesn't come back at all. Your choice, Jack." He turned and walked back to his car, a black Mercedes, casual as if leaving a dinner party. At the driver's door he paused, looking back. "You were always the best operator I had. Shame you grew a conscience. Made you weak." The engine purred to life and the car rolled back down the mountain, disappearing into the darkness. Jack stood on the porch, gun in hand, shaking with rage and terror. 72 hours, 3 days to figure out how to save his son from the ghost that had found him after all these years. Jack didn't sleep. By sunrise, he'd made 3 decisions. He wasn't giving Caldwell the files, he wasn't running, and he was calling Victoria Reed. The thought of needing help burned like acid, but Caldwell had made it clear this wasn't a fight Jack could win alone. Not with Ben's safety at stake. He dialed at 6 a.m. She answered on the first ring. "Donovan, I need your help." The words tasted like ashes. "Where are you, my cabin? The man who came here last night. He's dangerous in ways you can't imagine. So if you're smart, you hang up and forget you ever met me." Her response came without hesitation. "I'm not smart, I'm stubborn. Stay there. I'm coming." She arrived at 9 a.m. in an armored Range Rover, wearing tactical pants and a jacket that probably had Kevlar woven into it. Her security team established a perimeter while she walked into his cabin, surveyed the packed bags, and raised an eyebrow. "Tell me everything." So Jack did. He told her about Atlas security, about missions in countries that didn't officially exist on any map, about things they did to keep oil flowing and governments stable. He told her about the village elder Caldwell had ordered him to execute, about stealing the files instead, about running for a decade with a target on his back. And he told her about Robert Caldwell, about the threat, about the 72 hours that were now 63 and counting. Victoria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment, something unreadable flickering behind her eyes. "You're not giving him the files," it wasn't a question. "No, if I do, he kills me and takes Ben anyway. Those files are the only leverage I have." She pulled out her phone. "Then we need a different plan. I have resources. Security teams, legal firepower." Her tone changed, became almost clinical. "What's your assessment of Caldwell's capabilities?" Jack's laugh was hollow. "He'll find us. Caldwell has contacts everywhere. Intelligence agencies, criminal networks. Running just delays the inevitable. Victoria's eyes were sharp. Then what's your play? Jack looked toward Ben's room where his son sat reading headphones on, oblivious to the adult conversation happening 10 feet away. I go after Caldwell first. Take the fight to him before he can come after my son. That's suicide. Maybe. But it's better than waiting for him to come here. I need you to take Ben. Keep him safe while I handle this. You've got security resources places Caldwell can't touch. Will you do that? Victoria studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I'll do better than that. I'll help you. This isn't your fight, Jack wanted to say, but Victoria leaned forward, intensity radiating from her. You saved my life. I told you I owed you. This is how I pay that debt. I've spent 20 years building Reed Technologies. You think I did that by being nice? She smiled, a predator's smile. I've gone to war with hedge funds, hostile takeovers, corporate espionage that would make your mercenary work look like child's play. I know how to fight dirty, and I know people who can help us. Jack needed her money, her connections, her willingness to step into the fire. Okay, but first thing, we get Ben somewhere safe. They move fast. Victoria made calls arranged for her security team to meet them at a private airstrip 2 hours away. Jack sat Ben down, struggled to find the right words. Ben looked at his father with eyes too old for his face. Is this about the man who came last night, hurt his car? Jack's chest tightened. How long had his son been awake listening to threats against his life? We need to go away for a little while, buddy. Just until I take care of something. Are we in danger? Ben's voice was small but steady. Jack considered lying, then thought better of it. Yes, but I'm going to fix it, I promise. He pulled Ben into a hug, breathed in the scent of his son's shampoo. There's going to be a plane to take you somewhere safe. Miss Reed's friends will look after you. But not you, Ben pulled back, eyes suddenly wet. You're not coming, I'll come get you as soon as I can. This is something only I can fix. Is it because of what you did before I was born? The question landed like a physical blow. When you were a soldier, Jack froze. How did you know about that? Ben looked down. I found your box once, with the gun and the pictures. There were men in uniforms, and you looked different. Jack closed his eyes briefly, cursing his carelessness. Yes, it's because of that time. But I'm going to make it right, and then we'll be safe, I promise. He squeezed Ben's shoulders. I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? Ben nodded. Tears streaming now. I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo. Jack's voice cracked. More than anything in this world. Don't forget that. They packed quickly, closed Ben's inhaler, the stuffed bear he'd had since infancy but wouldn't admit to still sleeping with. Jack added Ben's science books and his tablet loaded with games that might distract him. Victoria waited discreetly by the door, giving them space for goodbyes that felt too final. The drive to the airstrip was tense, Jack checking the mirrors constantly. They made the airfield by noon, where a sleek Gulfstream waited, engines already running. 4 men in dark suits stood at the base of the stairs, scanning the surroundings with practiced efficiency. They're mine. Victoria nodded toward them. Ex-Special Forces, best in the business. They'll take Ben to my estate in Napa. 24-hour protection. No one gets through them. Jack crouched down, looked Ben in the eye. You're going to go with Miss Reed's friends. They're good guys. They'll take you somewhere really safe, and I'm going to come get you as soon as I can. Okay. Ben's eyes were wet. You promise? Jack pulled him into a hug, trying to memorize the feeling of those small arms around his neck. I promise. I love you, kiddo. I love you too, Dad. Jack let go, watched one of Victoria's security team gently take Ben's hand and lead him up the stairs. His son looked back, once waved, and then he was gone, swallowed by the plane's interior. The door closed, the engines roared, and Jack stood on the tarmac watching the jet climb into the sky, praying he'd live long enough to see his son again. Victoria's hand touched his shoulder. He'll be safe. Jack turned to her, voice low and deadly. He better be. Because if Caldwell gets to him, I'll burn Atlas to the ground and everyone in it. Then let's make sure that doesn't happen. Victoria pulled out her phone. I'm bringing in someone you need to meet. FBI, an old friend from Harvard who specializes in domestic terrorism. If Atlas is operating on U.S. soil, she can help us build a case. Get warrants. Turn this from a private war into a federal investigation. Jack's gut twisted. FBI means questions. Victoria's eyes were calculating. They'll want Caldwell more. You've got files that prove Atlas committed war crimes. That makes you a whistleblower, not a criminal. We play this right, you walk away clean. But we have to move fast. They spent the next 6 hours in a hotel conference room laying out the plan. The FBI agent Claire Bennett, mid-40s with the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that said she'd seen the worst humanity had to offer, listened to Jack's story, asked pointed questions, and finally nodded. You've got enough here to open an investigation. But opening an investigation takes time. Warrants, judges, bureaucracy. Time you don't have. So what do? We force Caldwell's hand, make him think Jack's delivering the files, then ambush him. Bring him in alive. Get him talking. Use his testimony to roll up the rest of Atlas. Claire looked at Victoria. You're going to need serious security for this. Victoria nodded. I've got security. She looked at Jack. What about the files? Jack pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. Right here. Everything. Names, dates, mission logs, bank transfers, video footage from helmet cams. It's enough to put Caldwell and half his command staff away for life. Claire reached for it, but Jack pulled it back. Not yet. This is my insurance. Nobody gets it until my son is safe and Caldwell is in cuffs. Fair enough, Claire said. Then here's the plan. When Caldwell texts the location, we set up surveillance. FBI hostage rescue team in position ready to move. You go in wired hand over a fake drive. When Caldwell realizes it's fake, we move in. Fast, clean, overwhelming force. Claire's smile was cold. And if he figures it out before you move in, then I better be a good liar. Jack's voice was flat. Because if he smells a trap, he'll kill me and disappear, and my son becomes leverage. Jack's phone buzzed. Everyone went silent. He pulled it out, looked at the screen. A text from an unknown number, Pier 9 Warehouse, Seattle. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone. No cops, no backup, or the boy dies screaming. Jack showed the text to Claire and Victoria. The agent swore softly. That's aggressive. He's pushing the timeline because he knows we're not going to sit on our hands. He's forcing my move, Jack said. Then we force his. Claire stood. I'll get HRT mobilized. Jack, you're going to walk in there tomorrow night, hand over the fake drive, and keep Caldwell talking long enough for us to get into position. Think you can do that? Jack looked at the text again, at the words, the boy dies screaming, and felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. Yeah, I can do that. Victoria reached out, squeezed his hand. You're not doing this alone. The hell I'm not, Jack wanted to say. But Victoria's grip tightened. I told you I'm stubborn. I'm coming with you to Seattle. I'm going to be in that surveillance van watching. If something goes wrong, I want to be there. Jack wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes said it wouldn't matter. She'd made up her mind. He nodded, turned to Claire. Get your team ready. Tomorrow night we end this. The warehouse at Pier 9 smelled like rust and dead fish. Jack stood in the center of the empty space, a single overhead light casting shadows that stretched like accusing fingers across the concrete floor. It was 11:50 p.m., 10 minutes until Caldwell arrived. Jack wore a wire taped to his chest so thin he could barely feel it, and an earpiece so small it was invisible. Claire Bennett's voice whispered in his ear, calm and professional. HRT is in position. 3 sniper teams, 2 breach teams. The moment Caldwell makes a move, we close the net. Just keep him talking. Copy, Jack murmured. He could feel his heart hammering, adrenaline singing in his veins. This was familiar territory. The moment before contact when everything hung in balance, and the next 5 minutes would determine whether you lived or died. He'd done this 100 times in Iraq, Afghanistan, places without names. But those times he'd had a team behind him. This time he had a billionaire in a surveillance van and FBI agents who'd never heard his name until yesterday. It would have to be enough. Headlights swept across the warehouse entrance. A black Mercedes rolled in slow and deliberate, engine purring. It stopped 20 feet from Jack, and Robert Caldwell stepped out alone. He wore a dark suit, hands empty, moving with the casual confidence of a man who believed he'd already won. He smiled when he saw Jack. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality. Where's my son? Jack demanded. Safe for now. Caldwell walked closer, stopped just outside arm's reach. You bring the files, Jack pulled the flash drive from his pocket, held it up. Right here. Everything you asked for. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. Toss it to me. Not until you prove my son is alive, Jack said. Caldwell sighed, pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. He turned it so Jack could see. Video footage timestamped 20 minutes ago. Ben sitting in a room Jack didn't recognize, looking scared but unharmed. A man's voice off camera. "Say hi to your dad, kid." Ben waved at the camera, tears on his cheeks, and Jack's chest constricted so tight he thought his ribs would crack. Caldwell pocketed the phone. Satisfied now. "Give me the drive." Jack tossed it. Caldwell caught it one-handed, plugged it into a laptop he pulled from inside the Mercedes. His fingers moved across the keyboard, checking files, verifying contents. Jack watched his face, watched the moment Caldwell's expression shifted from confidence to suspicion to cold, murderous rage. "This is empty." Caldwell's voice was deadly quiet. Yeah, Jack's body tensed for what would come next. Funny how that works. Caldwell pulled a gun, aimed it at Jack's chest. "You think this is a game? You think I won't kill you right here?" "Go ahead." Jack's voice was steady even though his pulse screamed. "Kill me and you never get those files. They're encrypted, hidden, and if I don't check in with the right person at the right time, they get uploaded to every news outlet, every congressional committee, every international court that would love to put you away. So pull that trigger, see what happens." Caldwell's jaw tightened. The gun didn't waver. "Where's your son right now, Jack? You think I can't make that phone call? Have him bleeding out in the next 60 seconds? That footage was fake." Jack took a step forward, closing the distance. "Ben's not with your people. He's somewhere you'll never find him. Protected by people a hell of a lot more competent than Atlas contractors. You lost Caldwell. It's over. Nothing's over until I say it's over," Caldwell said. His finger moved to the trigger, and Jack saw the calculation in his eyes. The moment a man decides killing someone is worth the consequences. Time slowed. Jack's hand moved toward the concealed pistol at his back. Caldwell's finger tightened. Then Claire's voice exploded in his earpiece. "Something's wrong. HRT is reporting radio interference. Someone's jamming the transmission cutout." Jack froze, suddenly aware of movement in the shadows behind Caldwell. Not FBI. Wrong posture, wrong approach, vectors. Shit. Caldwell smiled, seeing the realization in Jack's eyes. "Did you really think I'd come alone, that I'd walk into an FBI trap without a contingency plan?" Three men emerged from the darkness, tactical gear, suppressed weapons. Professional. Jack recognized one of them. Vega, former Delta, now Caldwell's head of operations. The others were new, but moved with the same lethal efficiency. "You forget who trained you, Jack." Caldwell's smile widened. "I taught you to always have a backup plan. My men have already neutralized the FBI surveillance. Frequency jammers, signal intercepts, basic counterintelligence." He shook his head in mock disappointment. "You've gone soft." In the distance, Jack heard the faint pop of suppressed gunfire. His mind raced through options, each worse than the last. Claire and her team were walking into an ambush. Victoria was in danger, and here he stood, outgunned and exposed. "Where's the real drive?" Jack Caldwell's voice hardened. "Last chance before this gets unpleasant." Movement flashed at the corner of Jack's vision. A figure in the rafters, then another by the eastern entrance. Not Caldwell's men. Different equipment profile. One of them hand-signaled 3 fingers, then a closed fist. 3 seconds. Jack stared at Caldwell, let his shoulders slump in defeat. "It's in my boot. Hidden compartment in the heel." As Caldwell's focus shifted downward, Jack dove to the side. The warehouse exploded with sound and light. Flashbang grenades detonating in precise sequence. Jack rolled behind a support column as gunfire erupted, controlled 3-round bursts that spoke of professional discipline. Through the chaos, Victoria Reed's security team engaged Caldwell's men with surgical precision. Jack drew his pistol, searching for Caldwell through the smoke. A figure darted toward the Mercedes, Caldwell making for the exit. Jack pursued, cutting through the warehouse to intercept. He emerged into the night air just as the Mercedes roared to life. Without hesitation, Jack fired twice, taking out the right front tire. The car swerved, hitting a stack of pallets before stalling. Jack approached cautiously, weapon trained on the driver's door. It flew open and Caldwell emerged, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but still holding his pistol. "You're persistent. I'll give you that." Caldwell leveled his weapon at Jack's chest. "But this ends now." Movement behind Caldwell. Victoria Reed stepping from the shadows of a shipping container, her own pistol aimed at Caldwell's back. Drop it. Her voice carried the same authority it had when Jack first pulled her from the sinking jet. I won't ask twice. Caldwell froze, then laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Victoria Reed, I should have guessed. You two make quite the pair. I said drop it. Victoria moved closer, eyes cold. Caldwell slowly lowered his weapon, then spun with unexpected speed, grabbing Victoria's arm. The gun discharged, the bullet going wide. Jack lunged forward as Caldwell wrestled with Victoria, using her as a shield. Back off, Jack, Caldwell shouted, pressing his pistol to Victoria's temple. Or the billionaire gets a third eye. Jack stopped weapons, still trained on them both, looking for a clean shot that didn't exist. Let her go, Caldwell. This is between you and me. It was, Caldwell snarled, until she decided to play hero. Now the stakes have changed. Victoria's eyes met Jack's, something unspoken passing between them. Trust me, her gaze seemed to say. Then in a move Jack hadn't anticipated, she drove her elbow backward into Caldwell's solar plexus. As he doubled over, she twisted free, dropping to one knee. Jack had his shot. He fired once, catching Caldwell on the shoulder. The older man went down, gun clattering away. Victoria kicked it further, then retrieved her own weapon. Nice move, Jack said, approaching cautiously, keeping Caldwell covered. Self-defense classes 3 times a week for 20 years. Victoria's breath came fast but controlled. Women in tech don't survive without learning to fight back. Sirens wailed in the distance. FBI reinforcements arriving too late to the party. Caldwell lay on the ground, hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder, eyes burning with hatred. This isn't over. You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming for you, for both of you. Jack knelt beside him, voice low. Where's Claire Bennett? Caldwell smiled through his pain. Ask her partner. Torres was ours from the beginning. You walked into a trap within a trap. Jack's blood went cold. If Torres was Caldwell's man, then the entire operation was compromised. Worse, Torres would know about Victoria's estate in Napa, about Ben. Victoria saw the realization on Jack's face. What? What is it we need to get to Ben? Now, Jack was already running toward Victoria's SUV, dialing the security team at the estate. No answer. Victoria slid into the driver's seat beside him, already making calls of her own. My pilot is standing by. We can be in Napa in 2 hours. Jack stared at the phone in his hand, willing it to ring. Come on, answer. His mind filled with the worst possibilities. Ben taken, Ben hurt, Ben scared and alone, calling for a father who wasn't there. He hadn't protected Kate from cancer. He couldn't fail to protect their son too. The SUV's tires squealed as Victoria accelerated toward the private airfield. Behind them, FBI vehicles converged on the warehouse, too late to prevent what had already been set in motion. Caldwell was down, but not out, his organization still operational. Claire Bennett was missing, possibly dead. And somewhere in Napa, Ben was either safe or in grave danger. Jack checked his weapon mind, already plotting contingencies. If they'd harmed his son, there would be no place on earth Atlas could hide. Not from what Jack would become. At the estate in Napa, Ben Donovan sat in a hidden panic room, watching through security monitors as armed men searched the mansion. Beside him, Sarah, the head of security, maintained calm communication with her team through a secure channel. Ben wasn't crying. His father had asked him to be brave, and brave he would be. But his hands trembled as he clutched the tablet his dad had packed, the screen displaying a simple text message he'd managed to send before they'd rushed to the panic room. They're here, Dad, but I'm safe. I remember what you taught me. I'm being brave. The message showed as delivered but unread. Ben prayed his father would see it soon. Until then, he would do exactly as Sarah instructed and remember everything his dad had ever taught him about staying alive when the world turned dangerous. Because one thing Ben knew with absolute certainty, Jack Donovan always kept his promises. His father was coming for him, no matter what. The Gulfstream jet cut through the night sky, engines humming with precision as Jack stared at the message on his phone. His son was alive, safe at least for now. The knot in his chest loosened fractionally enough to allow clear thought to return. Ben remembered what I taught him. Jack tucked the phone away, meeting Victoria's concerned gaze across the cabin. He's in the panic room with your head of security. Sarah, they haven't been breached yet. Victoria's fingers flew across her tablet, accessing remote security systems. The estate's primary defenses are still operational. Sarah's initiated blackout protocols. No communications in or out except through our encrypted channel. Jack watched Montana disappear beneath them, replaced by clouds illuminated by moonlight. Each minute felt like an eternity, knowing his son was under siege. The familiar sensation of helplessness threatened to overwhelm him. The same feeling he'd had watching Kate deteriorate despite the best medical care money could buy. Not this time. This time he would arrive in time. Victoria's voice pulled him back. "We have a situation." She turned her tablet, showing live security footage. 5 men in tactical gear surrounding the panic room entrance, setting up what looked like a breaching charge. How long? Jack's mind calculated distances, fuel consumption, possible delays. 2 hours minimum before we land. Victoria's expression hardened. But Sarah isn't alone. The tablet switched views, showing another security team moving through the estate's grounds. Not Atlas operatives, but Victoria's own people responding to the silent alarm. 8 operators moving with professional precision. I keep a quick reaction force nearby. Victoria allowed herself the ghost of a smile, habit from my early days in tech. Too many competitors wanted my prototypes. Jack watched as Victoria's team engaged the intruders, tactical lights cutting through darkness controlled bursts of gunfire. The silent feed made the violence seem distant, unreal, but Jack recognized the brutal efficiency of both sides. The panic room will hold. Jack couldn't tear his eyes from the screen, searching for any glimpse of Ben. It's designed to withstand a direct assault for 12 hours. Biometric locks, redundant air supply communications array, hardwired to my security network. Victoria's confidence faltered slightly, but they shouldn't have found it in the first place. Someone gave them the estate schematics. Torres. Jack spat the name like a curse. He had to have provided Atlas with the building plan security protocols. We have another problem. Victoria enlarged an image, focusing on one of the attackers' faces. Marcus Reeves, former Secret Service. He's on my personal security team, the one guarding the panic room. Jack's blood went cold. How many more moles did Caldwell have? How deep did Atlas's infiltration go? The estate battle intensified on screen. Victoria's response team had secured the main house, but at a cost. 3 of her operators down, 4 of Atlas's. The remaining intruders retreated toward the eastern perimeter, disappearing into the vineyard. They're regrouping. Jack recognized the tactics. They'll wait for reinforcements, then hit again with overwhelming force. Victoria's phone chimed with an encrypted message. She read it, relief flashing across her face. Sarah reports Ben is unharmed. Marcus tried to override the panic room protocols but failed. They're still secure. The jet banked sharply, beginning its descent toward a private airstrip north of Napa. Jack checked his weapon mind, cycling through tactical options. He'd be outnumbered, facing professionals on unfamiliar ground. Not good odds. Victoria watched him prepare, then opened a hidden compartment beneath her seat, revealing a compact arsenal, 2 MP5 submachine guns, body armor, tactical headsets. You came prepared for a social visit. Jack raised an eyebrow as he selected a weapon, checking its action. I've made enemies in 20 years of business. Victoria efficiently loaded magazines, movements betraying military training Jack hadn't expected. My father believed daughters should know how to hunt. Yale added self-defense. The corporate world taught me to anticipate betrayal. Jack reassessed the woman before him. Not just a CEO playing at being tough, but someone who understood real violence. Someone who might actually survive what was coming. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing final approach. Victoria secured the remaining weapons, then fixed Jack with an intense stare. Whatever happens, Ben is the priority. Get him out no matter the cost. If I don't make it, we both make it. Jack cut her off, checking the body armor's fit. Or neither of us does. I don't leave allies behind. Victoria nodded once acceptance of terms. As the jet touched down, Jack felt the familiar pre-combat clarity descending. The world sharpening into tactical problems with practical solutions. Find Ben, eliminate threats, extract to safety. The rest was just details. A blacked-out SUV waited on the tarmac, engine running. No driver. Victoria took the wheel while Jack scanned for surveillance. The roads were eerily empty as they sped toward the estate, a calculated risk. Speed over stealth. Each minute brought Atlas closer to breaching the panic room. Victoria's security channel lit up with urgent reports. The remaining Atlas team had received reinforcements, a helicopter dropping additional operators on the estate's north side. They were moving toward the main house again, this time with heavier weapons. They've got us outnumbered 3-1. Victoria's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as they raced through empty country roads. My team can't hold them much longer. Jack studied the estate schematic on Victoria's tablet. Then we don't fight fair. We bypass them completely. There's a maintenance tunnel connecting the wine cellar to the groundskeeper's cottage, not on the main blueprints. Victoria glanced at him surprised. How did you... I memorized the architectural plans while you were arranging transportation. Old habit. Jack traced the route with his finger. If the tunnel's still accessible, we can get to the panic room without engaging Atlas's main force. The SUV crested a hill, revealing the Reed estate sprawled across 30 acres of prime Napa Valley. Even in darkness, the main house dominated the landscape, a modern interpretation of Mediterranean architecture, all clean lines and strategic positioning. Under different circumstances, Jack would have appreciated the defensive sight lines and multiple evacuation routes. Now he saw only vulnerabilities, points of ingress, fields of fire. They abandoned the SUV half a mile from the main entrance, proceeding on foot through the vineyard. Gunfire echoed from the estate's western wing, Victoria's remaining security team providing unintentional misdirection. Jack and Victoria moved silently through rows of Cabernet vines, using the terrain for cover. The groundskeeper's cottage appeared abandoned, its windows dark. Jack approached cautiously, weapon ready. The door was unlocked. Not a good sign. Inside, furniture lay overturned, drawers emptied. Someone had searched the place thoroughly. They know about the tunnel. Victoria's voice was tight with controlled fear as she moved a bookcase, revealing a hidden door already ajar. Jack knelt, examining scuff marks on the floor. Recent, within the hour. They're ahead of us. Victoria pulled a small tablet from her jacket, accessing the estate's security system. The panic room cameras show no breach yet. Sarah's still holding position. The tunnel stretched before them, dimly lit by emergency lighting. Jack took point, moving quickly but cautiously, listening for sounds of ambush. The passage sloped downward, curving beneath the estate's foundations. After 200 yards, they reached a steel door, the entrance to the wine cellar. Jack pressed his ear against the cold metal, detecting faint movements on the other side. He held up 3 fingers, mouthing Atlas. Victoria nodded, switching her weapon to single shot. Jack counted down silently, then threw the door open. 3 Atlas operators turned, weapons rising, but Jack and Victoria had the advantage of surprise. The engagement was over in seconds. 3 controlled shots, 3 bodies on the cellar floor. Jack quickly searched them, collecting communication devices and ammunition. They're using a rotating frequency. Jack examined one of the radios. Military grade. We can track their communications, but not for long before they notice the missing team. The wine cellar connected to the main house through a tastefully hidden door designed to showcase the estate's collection to guests. Beyond lay the central atrium, 30 feet of open space they'd need to cross to reach the corridor leading to the panic room. No cover, multiple angles of fire. Victoria pulled up the security feed again. 2 Atlas operators guarding the panic room entrance, setting up what looked like a plasma cutter to breach the reinforced door. 4 more patrolling nearby corridors. The remaining force still engaged with Victoria's security team on the western perimeter. We need a diversion. Victoria studied the tablet, searching for options, something to draw them away from the panic room. Jack examined the estate's systems, noting the integrated fire suppression protocols. The wine collection is worth, what, 10 million? At least 15. Why, sorry about your insurance premiums. Jack accessed the fire control panel, overriding safety protocols. A controlled detonation in the cellar should trigger alarms across the entire estate. Atlas will have to respond, if only to ensure their own extraction route remains viable. Victoria nodded grimly. Do it. Jack rigged a delayed charge using components from the Atlas operator's equipment. 3 minutes. They retreated to the atrium entrance, waiting as the timer counted down. When the explosion came, it was surprisingly contained, enough to trigger alarms without threatening the structural integrity of the building. Instantly, fire suppression systems activated throughout the estate. Sprinklers drenched the atrium, alarms blared, and emergency lighting cast everything in a surreal red glow. On Victoria's tablet, they watched 4 of the 6 Atlas operators near the panic room respond, moving toward the cellar to investigate. Now, Jack led the way across the atrium, moving fast through spray and noise. They reached the opposite corridor, unchallenged, closing in on the panic room entrance. The remaining two Atlas operators were still focused on breaching the plasma cutter, sending sparks cascading across hardened steel. Jack took the first with a headshot from 30 feet. Victoria eliminated the second before he could respond. The plasma cutter died, its blue flame extinguished mid-cut. Jack approached the panic room door, placing his palm against the reinforced metal. "Sarah, it's Jack Donovan. Victoria's with me. We've neutralized the immediate threat." For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a series of heavy clunks as the locks disengaged. The door swung outward, revealing Sarah, tall, athletic, pistol still raised cautiously, and behind her, Ben, eyes wide but remarkably composed. "Dad." Ben launched himself forward, nearly knocking Jack over with the force of his embrace. "You came, I knew you would." Jack held his son tightly, relief washing through him with physical intensity. "I promised, didn't I?" He quickly checked Ben for injuries, finding none. "You did exactly right. Exactly what we practiced." Ben stepped back, pride mixing with lingering fear. "I remembered the panic phrase when Marcus started acting weird. And I sent you the message like you taught me." Victoria approached, squeezing Ben's shoulder gently. "You were very brave. But we need to move quickly. This location is compromised." Sarah checked her weapon posture, alert. They came in through multiple points simultaneously. Knew exactly where to hit us. Marcus disabled 3 security checkpoints before I realized what was happening. "How many of yours are still operational?" Jack asked, already planning their exit route. 4, maybe 5, engaging hostiles on the west side. Sarah's expression darkened. "But we lost at least 3 good people tonight." Victoria's tablet chimed with an urgent alert. The security feed showed new movement. Atlas operators regrouping, no longer concerned with stealth. They were converging on the panic room from multiple directions. "They know we're here." Jack's mind raced through options, each worse than the last. The tunnel was likely compromised. The main exits covered. Air extraction impossible without preparation. Victoria studied the security feeds, then turned to Sarah. "Protocol Omega, full scorched earth." Sarah nodded grimly, inputting a complex sequence into her tactical pad. Throughout the estate, secondary explosions detonated, not destructive, but generating enormous volumes of smoke and tear gas. Emergency exits unsealed automatically as environmental systems purged contaminated air. Chaos. Jack recognized the strategy. Create enough confusion to mask their escape. Victoria led them through service corridors, avoiding the main hallways now filling with chemical smoke. They emerged into the garage where an armored Suburban waited, engine running. Jack placed Ben in the back seat, covering him with a ballistic blanket from the emergency supplies. Sarah took the wheel, Victoria beside her, while Jack maintained rear security. The garage door opened to reveal the vineyard access road, and 3 Atlas SUVs forming a blockade 200 yards ahead. Sarah floored the accelerator, aiming directly for the smallest gap between vehicles. Atlas operators opened fire rounds, pinging off reinforced glass and armored panels. Jack returned suppressive fire through a specialized gun port, keeping the attackers' heads down. The Suburban hit the blockade at 60 miles per hour, shattering the lighter SUV and forcing it aside. Metal screamed against metal as they pushed through the engine, straining against the impact. They broke free tires, finding purchase on gravel, accelerating away as Atlas scrambled to pursue. Ben remained remarkably calm under the ballistic blanket, following Jack's instructions to stay down. Only the slight tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. "Are they going to keep coming after us?" "Not for long." Jack checked the tablet, tracking Atlas's pursuit vehicles. "They're down to skeleton crew now. FBI will have warrants for their remaining safe houses within hours. Atlas is burning resources they can't replace." Victoria turned from the front seat, expression grim. "But Caldwell is still out there, and Torres. They'll regroup, find new assets." Jack met her eyes, understanding, passing between them. This wasn't over. Wouldn't be over until Caldwell and his organization were dismantled completely. Sarah navigated back roads with practiced skill, evading the pursuing vehicles. After 20 minutes of evasive driving, they reached another private airstrip where Victoria's backup transportation waited, a nondescript corporate jet with diplomatic clearances that would bypass normal security channels. As they transferred to the aircraft, Jack maintained constant vigilance, scanning horizons and approach vectors. Only when they were airborne, climbing to cruising altitude, did he allow himself to exhale fully. Ben fell asleep almost immediately, exhaustion claiming him, despite the adrenaline. Jack watched his son's chest rise and fall, each breath a small miracle after the night they'd survived. Victoria sat across from them, applying a field dressing to a graze wound on her arm Jack hadn't noticed during the escape. "You handle yourself well in a firefight." Jack kept his voice low, not wanting to wake Ben. Victoria secured the bandage movements efficient. Corporate takeovers get more literal in certain markets. Her attempt at humor didn't reach her eyes, which remained haunted by the night's losses. "I've lost good people tonight. People whose only crime was working for me when Caldwell decided I was a target." The implicit question hung between them. Why had Atlas escalated from targeting Jack to a full assault on Victoria's organization? Victoria pulled out her tablet again, accessing a secured server. "While you were getting Ben settled, I had my team run deep background on Caldwell, cross-referencing with my husband's research before he died. The screen filled with documents, financial records, shipping manifests, research patents." Victoria's fingers moved across the display, organizing information with practiced efficiency. "7 years ago, my husband David developed a tracking system that could identify and neutralize stealth technology." Victoria's voice took on an academic detachment, as if the clinical approach could somehow distance her from the personal devastation. The Department of Defense was interested, but David wanted civilian applications first. Search and rescue disaster response. Then he died in a car accident I never believed was accidental. Jack studied the technical specifications scrolling past. Cutting-edge work, the kind that created billion-dollar defense contracts or made powerful enemies. 3 weeks ago, I finally had enough evidence to approach the FBI about reopening David's case. Victoria's jaw tightened. 2 days later, my jet suffered catastrophic mechanical failure over your lake. Jack's mind connected pieces that had seemed random. Your crash wasn't an accident, and Caldwell showing up at my cabin wasn't just about the files I took from Atlas. Victoria nodded slowly. "I think Atlas killed my husband for his research, then buried the technology. When I started digging, they tried to eliminate me too. When that failed and you got involved, Caldwell saw an opportunity to solve both problems at once. But why go after Ben?" Jack's protective instincts flared. "My son has nothing to do with any of this." Victoria hesitated, something flickering behind her eyes that Jack couldn't quite interpret. "Because you were there, Jack. In Syria. The night David was meeting with his overseas research team." Jack's blood went cold as memory surfaced. A mission he tried to forget. A research facility near Damascus. Atlas contracted to provide security consultation during a regime change. What was supposed to be an evacuation operation that turned into something else entirely. "I never knew who we were sent to extract." Jack's voice had gone hollow. "Caldwell compartmentalized everything, gave us minimal briefing. Just coordinates, timeframes, extraction protocols. It was David's Syrian development team." Victoria's eyes never left Jack's face. 7 scientists, all with fragments of the research in their heads. All killed when Atlas forces arrived, officially blamed on regime loyalists. David suspected something was wrong when none of them made the extraction point. Started asking questions no one wanted to answer. Jack's mind replayed that night in fragmented images. The unexpected resistance. Caldwell changing parameters mid-operation. The confusion as what should have been a simple extraction turned into room clearing and asset denial. I wasn't part of the strike team. Jack needed her to understand this distinction. I was running perimeter security monitoring approach routes. When communications went dark inside the facility, I was ordered to maintain position. Victoria's expression remained unreadable. "But you filed the operation report. The one declaring all targets neutralized, facility contents secured." Jack's stomach twisted with the implications. "I reported what Caldwell told me to report. I didn't go inside until extraction, by which point the damage was done. I never saw the scientists." For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the steady hum of the jet engines and Ben's soft breathing. "I believe you." Victoria finally broke the silence. "But it explains why Caldwell wants you eliminated along with me. You're the only surviving Atlas operative from that mission who isn't still loyal to him. The only one who might corroborate what really happened if the truth came out." Jack glanced at his sleeping son, the weight of the past pressing down with suffocating force. How deep does this go? How much reach does Caldwell have? Victoria pulled up another file. Personnel dossiers, government affiliations. More than we initially thought. Atlas has contracts with three-letter agencies, foreign governments, private military operations. Caldwell has cultivated relationships with federal judges, intelligence directors, congressional oversight committees. No wonder the FBI operation went sideways. Jack's tactical assessment adjusted to this new reality. Caldwell has people everywhere. We can't trust official channels. Not all of them. Victoria opened a secure communication line. But I know someone we can trust. Someone even Caldwell can't reach. The screen displayed a woman in her early 50s, silver threading through dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. FBI credentials identified her as Deputy Director Catherine Marsh, Counterterrorism Division. Victoria, I've been trying to reach you. The woman's voice was clipped professional. Claire Bennett has been found unconscious in her vehicle outside Seattle, alive but badly injured. We've moved her to a secure medical facility. What about Torres? Jack leaned into frame. In the wind. Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing Jack. Along with approximately 20 Atlas operatives we were tracking. They've gone dark, dumped phones, abandoned known safe houses. Classic ghost protocol. Victoria introduced Jack, briefly explaining his connection to Atlas and the current situation. Catherine listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly grave. This goes beyond a rogue PMC. Catherine's voice lowered. If Caldwell is targeting breakthrough stealth countermeasure technology, there are national security implications. Certain foreign actors would pay billions for that research, or eliminate anyone trying to develop it. We need protection. Victoria gestured toward Ben's sleeping form. And we need to end this, permanently. Catherine nodded once decision made. I'm establishing a safe house in Montana. Remote location, hand-picked security team vetted by me personally. No digital footprint, no connection to FBI resources Torres might access. Jack's instincts warned against trusting anyone else with Ben's safety, but pragmatism won out. They needed allies' resources beyond what he and Victoria could muster alone. I'll make arrangements to divert your flight, Catherine continued. In the meantime, I'm opening a black file investigation into Atlas and Caldwell. Official channels, but compartmentalized access. Only people I personally clear. And Torres. Jack pressed. He's seen Ben, knows what he looks like. Top of the manhunt list. Catherine's expression hardened. But Caldwell is the priority. Cut off the head, the rest of the organization will fracture. The communication ended, leaving Jack and Victoria alone with sleeping Ben and the weight of decisions that would determine their survival. Victoria broke the silence first. I never wanted this life for you or Ben. When I came to thank you after the crash, I had no idea I was painting targets on your backs. Jack watched his son's peaceful expression, marveling at the resilience of children. We already had targets on our backs. You just helped us see them in time. The jet banked, gently changing course toward Montana and the uncertain refuge awaiting them. Jack allowed himself a moment of grim calculation. They had survived the first wave, but Caldwell wouldn't stop. The man had resources, motivation, and now a personal vendetta. What about your husband's research? Jack kept his voice low. If Caldwell killed to suppress it once, he'll do it again. Victoria's hand moved unconsciously to a thin chain around her neck, a simple gold wedding band hanging from it. David wasn't just brilliant, he was paranoid. Trust issues that used to drive me crazy. She pulled out a small key attached to the chain. After the Syria incident, he fragmented his research across multiple secure servers. Physical keys, air-gapped systems, distributed access protocols. No single person had everything, except you. Jack recognized the significance of the key. You've been rebuilding it, not rebuilding, completing. Victoria's eyes took on a fierce intensity. For 7 years, I've been gathering pieces following David's breadcrumb trail. 3 weeks ago, I finally assembled enough to understand what he'd created and why someone would kill for it. The implications settled between them. Not just a widow seeking justice, but a technological sword of Damocles hanging over Caldwell and whoever he was protecting. If we go public with this, we'll have more enemies than just Atlas. Jack thought through the consequences. Foreign intelligence services, defense contractors who'd lose billions, Government officials implicated in the cover-up. Victoria's smile held no warmth. Why do you think I built one of the largest private security forces in the tech industry? I've been preparing for this fight for 7 years. The jet continued through darkness toward Montana, carrying its passengers toward a confrontation years in the making. Jack closed his eyes briefly, not to sleep, but to center himself. When he opened them, his decision was made. I'll help you finish this. For Ben, for your husband, for everyone Caldwell has hurt. But we do it my way, controlled, precise, with contingencies for when things go wrong. Because they will. Victoria extended her hand, the gesture formal, despite the blood and grime still marking her skin from the night's battle. Partners. Jack clasped her hands, sealing the pact. Satan. Partners. As dawn broke over the mountain ranges, Ben stirred, blinking awake. He looked around, momentarily confused by the unfamiliar surroundings, then relaxed as he saw his father. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Jack smoothed his son's hair, buying time to find words an 8-year-old could understand. Then we're going to make sure the bad people can't hurt anyone else. Ben studied his father's face with unsettling perception. Like you did before, in your old job, Jack hesitated. Truth warring with protection, something like that. But different, too. This time we're doing it the right way. Ben nodded, accepting this with the simple faith of childhood. His next question, however, cut to the heart of everything. Will we still have to run after? Or can we go home? Jack exchanged glances with Victoria, seeing his own determination reflected in her eyes. When this is over, buddy, we won't have to run anymore. That's a promise. The jet began its descent toward a private landing strip nestled in Montana wilderness. Below, a secure compound waited, surrounded by pristine forest and staffed by Catherine's most trusted agents. A temporary fortress while they prepared for war. Against the window, Ben pressed his palm to the glass, watching the landscape approach. Jack placed his hand over his son's smaller one, the gesture containing everything he couldn't express. Protection, determination, love fierce enough to burn the world if necessary. Victoria observed them silently, her own resolve hardening. She had lost her family to Caldwell's machinations. She wouldn't let it happen to someone else. Not again. Not while she had breath and resources and the burning clarity of purpose that had sustained her through 7 years of grief. As the wheels touched down, all 3 passengers shared the same unspoken thought: one way or another, this would end soon. The only question was, who would be left standing when it did? The Montana safe house sprawled across 40 acres of pristine wilderness, its defenses concealed beneath rustic architecture and natural landscaping. To casual observation, it appeared to be nothing more than an upscale hunting lodge. Only the occasional glint of surveillance equipment and the 2 regular patrol patterns of groundskeepers betrayed its true purpose. Jack stood at the bedroom window, watching Ben explore the property's edge, under the watchful eye of an FBI protective detail. 3 days had passed since their narrow escape from Napa. 3 days of relative safety planning and increasing restlessness. Victoria entered the room silently, her footsteps betraying her training, or perhaps revealing what had always been there beneath the corporate polish. She carried a secure tablet displaying Deputy Director Catherine Marsh's stern expression. We've located Torres. Catherine's voice was clipped efficient. Facial recognition caught him at a private airstrip outside Phoenix. He boarded a chartered flight to Washington, D.C. Jack studied the grainy surveillance image. Alone appears so. We've tracked the flight to a private hangar at Dulles. Catherine's frown deepened. But we've got a complication. The hangar is registered to Senator James Harrison. Victoria exhaled sharply. Senate Intelligence Committee and major defense contractors support her. Catherine nodded. Atlas does significant black budget work through shell companies connected to Harrison's campaign donors. The implications hung in the air. Not just a rogue PMC, but political protection at the highest levels. Jack's tactical assessment darkened further. They weren't fighting a single organization, but an entrenched system with nearly unlimited resources. Torres is meeting his handler. Jack's mind pieced together the operational pattern. Getting new instructions, probably a secure communication channel to Caldwell, or delivering something Caldwell needs. Victoria set the tablet on the desk, the gesture deliberate, controlled. Something from my husband's research they recovered during the Napa attack. Catherine's voice sharpened. What exactly would that be, Ms. Reed? For a moment, Victoria hesitated, the weight of 7 years' secrecy visibly pressing against her. My security team recovered Marcus Reeves' body during cleanup. He had a specialized drive with him, one designed to bypass my encryption. She met Jack's eyes briefly. One of mine reprogrammed. He was targeting specific servers. And you didn't think to mention this earlier, Catherine's expression hardened. I needed to verify what was taken first. Victoria's tone matched the deputy director's. It was a fragment of David's original stealth detection algorithm, not enough to reconstruct the complete system, but enough to prove the concept's viability. Jack watched the two women measuring each other, recalibrating trust. Catherine broke the silence first. This changes things. If Torres is delivering proof of concept to Harrison, they'll accelerate whatever Operation Caldwell's been planning. We need to move now before they go completely dark. The screen filled with tactical displays, satellite imagery of a remote compound in northern Idaho. According to Claire Bennett's intelligence, this is Atlas's primary training facility. Off-books disguised as a corporate retreat center. If Caldwell's rebuilding his operational teams, they'll stage from here. Jack studied the compound's layout, identifying defensive positions approach, vectors likely response patterns. A frontal assault would be suicide. The terrain favored defenders with overlapping fields of fire and limited approach routes. What's your proposed action? Jack kept his voice neutral, professional. Official raid. Catherine's expression left no room for debate. FBI tactical teams supported by National Guard elements if necessary. We take the facility, capture any Atlas personnel present, and secure documentation of their operations. Jack exchanged glances with Victoria, both recognizing the fatal flaw in Catherine's plan. A raid that size required extensive preparation, approvals, personnel assignments, operational briefings. Too many opportunities for Caldwell's inside sources to detect the threat. They'll be gone before your teams arrive. Jack traced alternative approach routes on the displayed map. And you'll burn your credibility if you raid a supposedly legitimate business facility and find nothing. Catherine's frustration showed briefly before her professional mask returned. What's your alternative, Mr. Donovan? Send me in. Jack outlined his plan with military precision. Small team surgical insertion, Victoria's security specialist for perimeter control, me for internal penetration. We locate actionable intelligence on Caldwell's location and current operations, then extract without detection. Too risky. Catherine dismissed the idea. If you are captured, I won't be. Jack's confidence wasn't bravado, but the calm certainty of someone who'd survived dozens of similar operations. And I'll be carrying an insurance policy. Victoria understood immediately. The files, the ones Caldwell wanted from the beginning. Jack nodded once. Properly encrypted, set to decrypt and upload automatically if I don't enter a kill code every 12 hours. Insurance that keeps me alive if captured and ensures justice if I'm not. Catherine studied him with new calculation, measuring the man against the operational parameters. You've done this before. It was my specialty at Atlas. Jack held her gaze. Deep penetration, intelligence, gathering, extraction without attribution. Caldwell trained me personally. The unspoken question lingered. Why should they trust the expertise Caldwell himself had instilled? Jack addressed it directly. I know how he thinks. I know Atlas protocols, response patterns, communication systems. I can move through their facility like a ghost because I helped design their security measures. Catherine remained unconvinced. And if this is an elaborate setup, if you're still Caldwell's man, using us to eliminate your own trail? Victoria interceded, her voice carrying unexpected weight. Jack saved my life when he had every reason to remain hidden. He's risked everything to protect his son. I trust him with this mission. With my life. The statement hung between them, momentum shifting subtly as Catherine reassessed. Finally, she nodded once decision made. 48 hours. My tactical teams will be positioned nearby as backup, but dark until you signal. If you're not out by the deadline, we come in regardless of consequences. Jack accepted the terms with a single nod. Victoria's security specialist, what remained of her trusted inner circle after the Napa attack, would arrive within hours. Preparation would take another day. The operation would launch at 0200, 2 days hence, under cover of darkness in an approaching storm system. As Catherine's image disappeared from the screen, Victoria turned to Jack, concern evident beneath her composed exterior. You know this is likely a one-way mission. Jack moved to the window again, watching Ben, who had discovered a family of deer at the forest's edge. The boy's delight was visible, even at distance, his arms gesturing enthusiastically to his protective detail. That's why I'm leaving Ben with you if something goes wrong. Jack kept his voice steady despite the weight behind his words. You'll make sure he's safe. Give him the life he deserves. Victoria followed his gaze to the child below. I promise. But it won't come to that. We're going to finish this together. Jack allowed himself a moment of bleak humor. Partners to the end. Partners to the end. Victoria's hand found his, the gesture surprising them both with its naturalness. And beyond, if we're lucky. The moment stretched between them, possibility crystallizing into something neither had been looking for, but both recognized. Then Victoria's phone chimed with an incoming secure message shattering the connection. It's from my R&D division. Victoria's expression transformed as she read professional mask giving way to genuine shock. They've completed the integration sequence David outlined in his research. The detection system works. We can track stealth technology across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Jack grasped the significance immediately. That's what Caldwell was trying to suppress. Technology that could neutralize any stealth platform, aircraft, submarines, even individual operatives using next-gen cloaking systems. More than that, Victoria's eyes held a fierce light. It means I can finish what David started, complete his legacy, and ensure no one can use this technology as a weapon. Their planning accelerated over the next 36 hours. Victoria's remaining security specialists, 4 operatives at salaries with backgrounds in various special forces units, arrived via different routes to avoid detection. Equipment followed through Catherine's secure channels. Jack spent hours memorizing the compound's layout, planning contingencies, rehearsing movements through similar spaces. The hardest moment came the night before departure when Jack sat Ben down for a conversation he hoped his son was old enough to understand. I have to go away for a little while. Jack kept his voice gentle but didn't sugarcoat the truth. To make sure the bad people can't hurt us anymore. Ben's eyes, so much like Kate's, it sometimes hurt to look directly at them, studied his father's face with unnerving perception. You're going after the man who tried to take me. Jack nodded, surprised again by his son's intuition. Yes, to make sure he can never threaten you again. Ben was quiet for a long moment, processing this with a child's straightforward logic. Is it dangerous? Yeah. Jack wouldn't lie, not about this. But I'm very good at what I do, and I'll have help. Ben nodded slowly, coming to some internal decision with the gravity only children can bring to momentous choices. You have to come back. His small hand gripped Jack's with surprising strength. You promised we wouldn't have to run anymore. You can't break promises. Jack pulled his son close, memorizing the feeling of those small arms around his neck, the scent of shampoo in childhood. I'll come back. That's a promise I won't break. Later that night, after Ben had fallen asleep, Victoria found Jack checking his equipment one final time. She carried 2 tumblers of amber liquid, offering one silently. Jack accepted the whiskey, burning a clean path down his throat. I've arranged for Ben's future, in case neither of us returns. Victoria's voice was steady despite the grim topic. Trust fund guardianship with a family. I trust implicitly complete identity documentation that can't be traced to either of us. Jack nodded once, acknowledging both the practical necessity and the care behind it. You didn't have to do that. Victoria sipped her drink, eyes distant. I know what it's like to lose everything in an instant, to have your entire world redefined by absence. No child should experience that twice. The unspoken connection between them deepened, built on shared understanding of loss and the fierce determination to prevent it from touching Ben again. Jack recognized in Victoria something he'd found in few others, someone who understood the darkness he'd lived in and the desperate hope that drove him forward. They departed before dawn, a small convoy of nondescript vehicles traveling separate roads toward the rendezvous point near the Atlas facility. Ben remained at the safe house with Catherine's most trusted agents. The parting easier than Jack had feared, but still leaving an ache he carried into the mission. The Idaho wilderness closed around them as they approached the final staging area, dense pine forest and rugged terrain that had made the location ideal for Atlas's purposes. Jack studied satellite imagery one final time, committing approach routes and fallback positions to memory. Victoria's team, Sarah and 3 other specialists, made final equipment checks with the quiet efficiency of professionals. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Sarah's team would establish surveillance positions around the perimeter, monitoring security patterns and providing early warning of any response. Jack would infiltrate alone through a maintenance access point, locate the central server room, and extract intelligence on Caldwell's current location and operations. Victoria would coordinate from a mobile command post, maintaining communications and ready to call in Catherine's FBI teams if necessary. 40 minutes to infiltration point. Sarah checked her watch, expression neutral. Weather system approaching from the northwest. We'll have cloud cover and rain within 2 hours. Ideal conditions for extraction. Jack felt the familiar pre-mission calm settling over him, the world narrowing to tactical problems and practical solutions. He caught Victoria watching him, something unreadable in her expression. What Jack continued his equipment check, curious despite himself. I've seen that look before. Victoria's voice carried an unexpected softness. In David's eyes when he was solving a particularly challenging equation. Complete focus like nothing else in the world exists. Jack hadn't expected the comparison to her late husband, wasn't sure how to respond. Victoria saved him the trouble, her professional demeanor returning as she checked the secure communication system one final time. The infiltration began precisely at 0200 darkness and steady rain, providing natural cover as Jack approached the compound's northeastern perimeter. Sarah's team reported minimal guard presence. Skeleton crew as expected, for a facility supposedly in standby mode. 2 roving patrols, predictable patterns, automated surveillance systems vulnerable to the signal jammers Victoria's tech team had provided. Jack moved through the security perimeter like a ghost, each motion deliberate, each pause calculated. He'd done this dozens of times for Atlas, slipping into facilities far more heavily guarded than this one. The familiar rhythm of infiltration steadied him. 15 seconds of movement, 30 seconds motionless, constantly scanning for threats. The maintenance access appeared exactly as shown in the blueprints Catherine had provided. A reinforced door with electronic lock sheltered from direct surveillance by a stand of pine trees. Jack attached a specialized decryption device to the control panel, Victoria's voice soft in his earpiece as she guided him through the bypass sequence. Security system accepting the override. Her tone remained professional despite the tension. You'll have 45 seconds before auxiliary systems detect the anomaly. Jack slipped through the door the moment it unlocked, closing it silently behind him. The service corridor stretched ahead, dimly lit by emergency lighting. He moved quickly but cautiously, counting steps, tracking turns. 300 feet to the main building. 200. 100. A guard appeared around the corner unexpectedly, breaking the predicted patrol pattern. Jack froze, then melted into the shadows of a recessed doorway. The guard passed within 3 feet, radio crackling with routine check-ins. Jack waited until the footsteps receded, then continued toward the central server room. The facility's interior layout matched the plans exactly. Atlas's obsession with standardization working against them. Jack located the server room on the second floor, accessed through a security door requiring biometric authentication. Another piece of Victoria's specialized equipment made short work of the security system, fooling the scanner with synthesized credentials. The server room hummed with the sound of cooling fans and processing power. Jack moved quickly to the central terminal, inserting the specialized drive Victoria's team had prepared. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as the system's defenses were systematically dismantled. I'm in. Jack's whisper carried through the secure channel to Victoria, beginning data extraction. Be careful. Victoria's voice remained steady despite the tension. Their system architecture might have changed since your time with them. Jack navigated through the file system with practiced ease, searching for operational plans, personnel deployments, anything that might lead to Caldwell. Most files contain mundane administrative details, supply requisitions, training schedules, maintenance logs. Then he found it, a secured folder labeled Sovereign Strike, access restricted to top-level authorization. The decryption took precious minutes each second, increasing the risk of discovery. Finally, the files opened, revealing contents that made Jack's blood run cold. Detailed operational plans for a coordinated attack on key government facilities. Personnel assignments. Equipment requisitions including specialized explosives and chemical agents. Target packages for senior intelligence officials and military commanders. This isn't just an operation. Jack transmitted images of the key documents to Victoria. It's a coup attempt. Victoria's sharp intake of breath carried clearly through the comlink. The timestamp, these orders were issued 3 days ago, right after Torres met with Senator Harrison. Jack continued downloading files, piecing together the operational framework. Caldwell had been planning this for years, using Atlas's government contracts as cover to position personnel throughout key agencies and military commands. The stealth detection technology would have exposed his embedded operatives, making David Reed's research an existential threat to the entire operation. The final piece fell into place as Jack accessed Caldwell's personal communications. A message from Torres confirming the acquisition of partial Reed materials and a meeting location for final briefing. An Atlas safe house in Northern Virginia, less than 30 miles from Washington, D.C. extraction time. Sarah's voice cut through Jack's concentration. Patrols are converging on your position. Someone tripped an alert. Jack disconnected the drive, pocketing it securely. We've got what we need. Caldwell's location, operational plans, everything. He moved toward the exit, mentally reviewing his escape route. The first gunshot shattered the relative quiet, followed immediately by the staccato rhythm of automatic weapons fire. Jack froze, pressing against the wall as he processed this new development. Sarah report. Victoria's voice remained calm despite the crisis. Under fire from eastern approach. Sarah's breathing came fast but controlled. At least 8 hostiles tactically positioned. This isn't a patrol, it's an ambush. Jack's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Someone had anticipated their operation. The only question was whether they'd been compromised before infiltration or discovered during. Change of plans. Jack modified his route, heading away from the gunfire toward the facility's western exit. I'll extract through the loading bay. Rendezvous at fallback position, Charlie. Negative. Sarah's voice came between controlled bursts of return fire. Western approach is compromised as well. They've got the building surrounded. Jack accessed the building's security cameras through the server room terminal, confirming Sarah's assessment. Atlas operators had established a cordon around the facility, methodically tightening their perimeter. This wasn't a random security response. It was a carefully planned trap. Victoria calling Catherine's team. Jack's decision was immediate. We need the FBI tactical units now, already done. Victoria's voice carried the strain of controlled fear. ETA 20 minutes. But Jack, the approaching vehicles aren't wearing Atlas identifiers. They're using federal tactical markings. The implication landed with devastating clarity. Not just Atlas operators, but corrupted federal agents. The infiltration went higher than they'd anticipated, reaching into the tactical teams Catherine had positioned as backup. They're not coming to extract us. Jack watched through security feeds as more vehicles arrived, disgorging armed personnel in FBI tactical gear. They're coming to eliminate us and bury the evidence. Sarah's team was pinned down, unable to reach the command post or extract Jack from the facility. Victoria was isolated, vulnerable if discovered. And somewhere in Northern Virginia, Caldwell was preparing to launch an operation that would destabilize the entire government. Jack made his decision in the cold, clear space combat veterans know too well, where options narrow to survival and mission with a little room between. Victoria, initiate protocol sundown. Get to the fallback position and wait for my signal. Protocol sundown. Their most desperate contingency plan. If Jack didn't make contact within 6 hours, Victoria would transmit everything they discovered to Catherine Marsh and selected media outlets, simultaneously ensuring the information couldn't be suppressed, even if they were captured or killed. Victoria's hesitation was brief but palpable. Jack, there has to be another way. There isn't. Jack's voice left no room for debate. These aren't just Atlas operatives. They're compromised federal agents. We need to assume Catherine's position is compromised as well. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly as Atlas forces breached the facility's outer doors. Jack moved away from the server room, seeking defensible position with multiple escape routes. The building's northwestern quadrant offered the best options, maintenance areas with access to both the ventilation system and external drainage tunnels. Sarah's team maintained a fighting retreat, buying time with disciplined fire and tactical movement. Jack monitored their progress through security cameras, grimly noting the professionalism of the Atlas operators. These weren't ordinary mercenaries, but elite special operations personnel, likely recruited from the same unit Sarah's team had once served in. Jack reached the maintenance area just as the first Atlas team breached the second floor. He secured the access door, buying precious minutes to prepare his next move. The ventilation system would be expected. The drainage tunnels less so, especially with the approaching storm increasing water flow and obscuring thermal signatures. A familiar voice echoed through the facility's public address system, freezing Jack mid-motion. "I'm disappointed, Jack." Robert Caldwell's cultured tones carried the faintest trace of genuine regret. "You were my finest operator. I taught you everything you know about infiltration, extraction, asymmetric warfare, and yet here you are cornered like an amateur." Jack remained silent, continuing his preparations. Caldwell was attempting to fix his position through voice response, a basic psychological operation taught in Atlas training. "I know you can hear me," Caldwell continued. "I know you've seen the operational plans. Sovereign strike isn't what you think. It's not destruction. It's salvation. This country is rotting from within, corrupted by bureaucrats and politicians who've forgotten what strength means. We're simply cauterizing the wound." Jack accessed the drainage tunnel, lowering himself into the fast-moving water as Caldwell's voice followed him through overhead speakers. "You could still join us. Your skills, your experience. We need men like you, Jack. Men who understand that sometimes the old order must fall for a new one to rise. Think of your son. Think of the world he'll inherit if we don't act now." The cold water rose to Jack's chest as he moved deeper into the drainage system, Caldwell's voice finally fading behind him. The tunnel narrowed, forcing him to wade against the increasingly powerful current. Each step required careful balance, the risk of being swept away growing with the intensifying storm above. After 20 minutes of grueling progress, Jack reached a junction where the tunnel widened into a larger collection basin. He paused, catching his breath and checking the waterproof case containing the intelligence he'd gathered. Still intact, still secure. A noise behind him, faint splashing, too regular to be random water movement. Jack turned slowly, weapon ready to find himself facing Torres. The former FBI agent stood 15 feet away, water swirling around his waist, pistol aimed steadily at Jack's chest. "Caldwell said you'd choose the tunnels." Torres' expression held nothing personal, merely professional assessment. "Said you always picked the route others overlooked." Jack weighed his options. The water and poor lighting made accurate shooting difficult for both of them. Torres had position advantage but was fighting the current. A direct confrontation favored neither. "You betrayed your oath." Jack kept his voice neutral, buying time while searching for tactical advantage. "Everything the FBI stands for." For what money power, Torres's laugh held genuine amusement. "You think this is about money? This is about the future. About strength replacing weakness. The Bureau's been gelded by politicians reduced to paper pushing while real threats go unaddressed. Caldwell offered something better, a chance to actually protect this country instead of just talking about it. By staging a coup, Jack shifted slightly, testing Torres' tracking. By killing innocent people, necessary sacrifices. Torres adjusted his aim smoothly, compensating for Jack's movement. Progress requires bold action. History vindicates the victors, not the hesitant. Jack recognized the rhetoric, Caldwell's philosophy distilled into recruitment talking points. The same justifications Atlas had used for operations that crossed ethical and legal boundaries. The same reasoning Jack himself had accepted until that night in Syria, when he'd finally seen the disconnect between Caldwell's lofty ideals and the blood-soaked reality they created. And Victoria Reed. Jack continued the conversation, mind-calculating angles and timing. Was killing her husband part of protecting the country? Torres's expression flickered briefly, not guilt but annoyance at operational details being voiced aloud. Collateral damage. He was developing technology that would have compromised national security. Made us vulnerable to our enemies by exposing your embedded agents. Jack connected pieces that had seemed disparate. Atlas hasn't just been training mercenaries. You've been placing sleeper operatives throughout government agencies, military commands, critical infrastructure. Torres's silence confirmed Jack's assessment. The stealth detection technology wouldn't just have exposed military hardware, but human assets as well. The network Caldwell had spent years building, positioned to execute sovereign strike when activated. You won't stop it. Torres shifted position, seeking better footing in the strengthening current. It's already in motion. Key personnel are in place. Command structures have been infiltrated. By this time tomorrow, the old order falls and a new one rises. Jack made his move as Torres finished speaking, diving sideways into deeper water as Torres fired. The bullet missed by inches, the report deafening in the confined space. Jack surfaced behind a concrete support column, returning fire with controlled precision despite the challenging conditions. Torres took cover as well, both men now locked in a deadly standoff amid rising water and deteriorating conditions. The storm above had intensified, increasing the flow through the drainage system. Within minutes, the basin would flood completely, forcing both men to either retreat or drown. "You're on the wrong side of history," Donovan Torres called over the roaring water. "Caldwell will succeed with or without the Reed research. It's too late to stop what's coming." Jack calculated his remaining options, each narrowing as the water level rose. Direct confrontation was increasingly suicidal. Retreat meant losing Torres and valuable intelligence on Caldwell's operation. Advance meant facing an entrenched opponent with solid position. The decision came with crystal clarity as Jack recognized the one advantage Torres didn't know he possessed. The drainage system's schematics, memorized during mission preparation, included emergency overflow channels designed to divert excess water during major storms. One such channel lay directly beneath Torres's position, separated by a deteriorating concrete barrier, weakened by years of water damage. Jack fired 3 precisely placed shots, not at Torres, but at the weakened concrete supporting his position. The structure collapsed immediately, sending Torres and several hundred pounds of concrete into the overflow channel below. His scream cut off abruptly as the torrent swept him away into the darkness. Jack didn't wait to confirm Torres's fate. The drainage system was becoming increasingly dangerous as water levels approached critical capacity. He moved forward, fighting the current until reaching an emergency access ladder that led to a maintenance hatch half a mile from the Atlas facility. The storm had intensified to near hurricane force, providing natural cover as Jack emerged into the wilderness. No signs of pursuit. The Atlas teams would be searching the drainage system or assuming he had been swept away with Torres. Either way, it bought valuable time. Jack oriented himself, quickly locating the fallback position through landmarks memorized during planning. The journey took over an hour through dense forest and driving rain, each step weighted with the urgency of their discovered intelligence. Sovereign strike wasn't just a threat to government stability, but to the entire democratic system. Victoria waited at the abandoned Forest Service cabin, relief breaking through her professional composure. Jack appeared through the rain. Her security team had suffered casualties. 2 operators down, Sarah wounded but stable, but had extracted successfully after Jack's diversion. The intelligence Jack had recovered painted a devastating picture. Atlas had spent years placing operatives in key positions throughout government and military command structures. Sovereign strike would activate these assets, simultaneously targeting civilian leadership and military commanders loyal to constitutional authority. The resulting power vacuum would be filled by Atlas-aligned officials, creating the appearance of continuity while actually executing a carefully orchestrated coup. "We need to warn Catherine." Victoria finished reviewing the operational plans, face pale despite her composed demeanor. "If Caldwell's operation is already in motion, we can't trust Catherine." Jack's interruption was gentle but firm. "Not directly. We don't know how far the infiltration extends." Victoria processed this with the rapid calculation of someone accustomed to high-stakes decisions. "Then we use the fail-safe protocol. Distribute the intelligence through multiple channels simultaneously. Too many points of exposure for Caldwell to contain." Jack nodded agreement, already formulating the next step. "But first we end this at the source. Caldwell, the Virginia safe house." Victoria understood immediately. A direct operation against Atlas's leader, using the intelligence they'd gathered to prevent sovereign strike from reaching execution phase. Dangerous, nearly suicidal, but potentially the only way to disrupt the operation completely. Sarah's team is in no condition for another assault. Victoria gestured toward the wounded operators resting in the cabin's back room. "And Catherine's FBI teams are compromised. I'll go alone." Jack began assembling equipment, mind already mapping approach vectors for the Virginia target. "One person has better infiltration odds than a team, especially given Caldwell's current security posture." Victoria's response came without hesitation. "Not alone. I'm coming with you." Jack paused, studying her with new assessment. Not dismissal, not underestimation, but professional evaluation of capabilities and limitations. You're not trained for this kind of operation. I'm trained enough. Victoria met his gaze directly. And I have personal motivation Caldwell won't expect. He took David from me. He nearly took you and Ben. I won't sit safely behind while you face him alone. The argument died unspoken as Jack recognized the same determination that had driven him for 10 years. The fierce need to protect what remained to prevent further loss at any cost. He nodded once acceptance of both her decision and the partnership it represented. They moved quickly, leaving Sarah in command of the remaining security team with instructions to transmit the intelligence package if they didn't report within 24 hours. Catherine would receive carefully selected portions of the intelligence, enough to mobilize legitimate FBI resources against Atlas assets, but through channels Torres couldn't intercept. The journey to Virginia required careful planning. Commercial flights were too exposed private aircraft too easily tracked. They settled on ground transportation, a nondescript sedan with clean documentation provided through Victoria's extensive resources. 16 hours of driving through increasingly severe weather trading shifts to maintain alertness while planning their approach to Caldwell's position. The Virginia safe house appeared unassuming, a colonial-style home on 5 acres outside Fairfax, isolated enough for privacy, but close enough to Washington for operational convenience. Jack surveyed it from half a mile distant, noting security measures both obvious and concealed. Motion sensors disguised as landscaping lights. Surveillance cameras integrated into architectural details. Roving patrols of men who moved with military precision despite their civilian clothing. Heavy security. Victoria lowered her binoculars, expression thoughtful. But not as heavy as I expected for Caldwell's current operational tempo. Jack recognized the discrepancy immediately. Either their intelligence was wrong or he's not there yet. Jack refocused on the security patterns, reading them with experienced eyes. This is advanced preparation, cleaning the location, establishing security, perimeter, preparing for his arrival. Victoria checked her watch, correlating with the operational timeline they discovered. According to the Sovereign Strike documents, initial phase begins tomorrow at 0600. Caldwell would want to be in position at least 12 hours prior, which means he's arriving tonight. Jack calculated approach options, discarding several as too exposed or predictable. We go in ahead of him. Secure position, prepare ambush. The plan developed with methodical precision, each element considered and tested against potential countermeasures. They would enter through the property's rear approach, using the storm as cover for their advance. Victoria would establish overwatch position from the guest house, covering Jack's infiltration of the main building. They would neutralize security, quietly prepare the ambush, and capture Caldwell alive with evidence sufficient to expose the entire operation. As darkness fell, they made their approach through dense woodland bordering the property. The storm provided ideal cover, heavy rain masking their movement and disrupting electronic surveillance. Jack moved with practiced stealth, Victoria following his lead with surprising competence. Her self-defense training supplemented by capabilities she hadn't previously revealed. They reached the property boundary without incident, pausing to observe security patterns one final time before commitment. 2 exterior guards rotating positions every 15 minutes. Interior security visible through windows. At least 3 additional personnel. Sophisticated, but not impenetrable. Jack signaled their advance, moving through the tree line toward the first guard position. The neutralization was swift and silent, a precise chokehold rendering the guard unconscious before he registered the threat. Victoria secured him with zip ties and concealed the body beneath dense shrubbery, her movements efficient despite the adverse conditions. The second guard presented greater challenge. Position exposed sightlines clear to the main house. Jack improvised, using a small electronic device from their equipment cache to create a localized power fluctuation. As the guard moved to investigate, Victoria approached from his blind side, administering a precise injection of sedative that took effect within seconds. With the exterior secure, they advanced on the main house, accessing through a service entrance, with electronic lock defeated by specialized equipment. The interior guards proved more challenging, professional operators maintaining disciplined security protocols. Jack was forced to engage the first directly, a brief hand-to-hand confrontation, ending with the guard unconscious, but one of Jack's ribs cracked in the process. Victoria demonstrated unexpected skill with the second guard, using a combination of misdirection and precise strikes to neutralize him before he could raise alarm. The third recognized the threat too late, managing a partial warning before Jack's precisely placed blow rendered him unconscious. The safe house secured, they established their ambush position in Caldwell's likely arrival area, the main study where operational planning would occur. Jack placed surveillance devices throughout the house, creating comprehensive awareness of all approaches. Victoria established communication links that would transmit evidence regardless of outcome. Then they waited, tension building with each passing hour. Midnight came and went without activity. Then 1 a.m., 2 a.m. The storm intensified, outside wind howling against colonial architecture, never designed for such punishment. At 3:17 a.m., headlights appeared on the long driveway leading to the main house. Two vehicles, advanced security and led SUV, Caldwell presumably in the second. Jack and Victoria took their positions, the trap ready to spring. The front door opened, admitting 4 security personnel who proceeded to sweep the house with professional thoroughness. They discovered their unconscious colleagues, quickly raising immediate alarm. Jack had anticipated this, using it to draw focus while he and Victoria remained concealed in the study behind false paneling, another Atlas standard feature Jack had helped design years earlier. The security team initiated emergency protocols, reporting the breach while establishing defensive positions throughout the house. Through carefully placed surveillance, Jack watched their movements, noting the discipline that spoke of special operations background. These weren't ordinary security, but elite operators, likely part of Caldwell's personal protection detail. The second vehicle remained in the driveway, engine running, as the security team completed their assessment. Finally, apparently satisfied the immediate threat had withdrawn, they signaled the all clear. The rear door of the second SUV opened, and Robert Caldwell emerged, moving quickly through rain toward the house's main entrance. Jack tensed, preparing for the moment Caldwell would enter the study. Victoria beside him, weapon-ready expression, calm despite the stakes. They had one chance, one opportunity to end Sovereign strike before it began. Caldwell entered the house accompanied by 2 additional security personnel. He moved directly toward the study, pausing at the entrance to survey the room with careful attention. Even injured and under pressure, he maintained the situational awareness that had kept him alive through decades of clandestine operations. Something's wrong. Caldwell's voice carried clearly to their concealed position. The security rotation is off. Check the house again. As the security team dispersed to execute the order, Caldwell remained in the study doorway, eyes scanning with predatory intensity. Jack recognized the expression. Caldwell sensing danger without yet identifying its source, an instinct developed through years of operations in hostile territory. "I know you're here, Jack." Caldwell stepped fully into the room, seemingly unconcerned with his exposure. "Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate this? That I wouldn't recognize my own tactics used against me?" Jack remained motionless. Victoria beside him, equally still. Caldwell moved to the desk, activating a computer terminal that illuminated his features in harsh blue light. He looked older than Jack remembered from their encounter in Seattle, the wound in his shoulder evidently still troubling him, lines of pain etched around his eyes. "Let me save you some time." Caldwell spoke to the apparently empty room. "Your FBI contact, Deputy Director Marsh, has been detained for questioning regarding unauthorized operations. Your security team in Montana has been neutralized, and your son Ben is currently in protective custody with agents loyal to our cause." Jack felt ice form in his veins, fighting the urge to break cover immediately. Victoria's hand found his in the darkness, steadying, grounding, a warning not to react to what might be manipulation rather than truth. Caldwell continued, apparently satisfied with the reaction his words had generated despite their concealment. "Sovereign strike isn't just an operation, Jack. It's the culmination of 20 years planning, the necessary correction to a system that's lost its way. You've seen the decline, the weakness, the corruption, the surrender of American interests to foreign powers and domestic parasites." He moved around the desk closer to their positions, still scanning the room methodically. "But it's not too late for you. You were always the best, the most adaptable. Even now, you've managed to penetrate our most secure facility, neutralize elite operators, and position yourself within striking distance. Imagine what we could accomplish together, rebuilding this country into what it should be." Jack weighed options rapidly, each more desperate than the last. If Caldwell was telling the truth about Ben, immediate action was necessary. If he was lying premature, movement would sacrifice their advantage. The calculation balanced on a knife edge of probability and consequence. Victoria made the decision for them both, squeezing his hand once before shifting position slightly deliberately, creating a faint noise audible in the sudden silence. Caldwell turned toward the sound expression, sharpening with predatory focus. Ms. Reed, I wondered if you'd join this ill-conceived operation. Caldwell's voice carried something almost like respect. Your husband would be impressed by your persistence, if not your judgment. Victoria emerged from concealment weapon trained on Caldwell with rock-steady precision. My husband would want justice for his murder, for the theft of his research, for the corruption of everything he believed in. Caldwell smiled thinly, seemingly unconcerned with the weapon aimed at his chest. Your husband was collateral damage in a larger conflict. His research threatened national security. The ability to detect and track stealth technology would have eliminated our strategic advantage over peer competitors. Jack emerged as well, positioning himself to cover both Caldwell and the room's entrance, anticipating the security team's return. Where's my son's safe? For now. Caldwell's expression revealed nothing. His continued well-being depends entirely on your next actions. The operational plans you stole, they've been transmitted. Not yet. Jack kept his voice neutral despite the rage building beneath. Insurance in case this meeting went sideways. Caldwell nodded once as if confirming a hypothesis. Then we still have room to negotiate. Your son's safety and freedom in exchange for your silence. The operational plans returned, all copies destroyed. You and Ms. Reed disappear. New identities, substantial resources, my personal guarantee of non-interference. Victoria's laugh held no humor. Your guarantee means nothing. You murdered my husband, tried to kill me, threatened a child. There's no negotiation possible. Everyone negotiates when survival is at stake. Caldwell's confidence remained unshaken. You have approximately 30 seconds before my security team returns. They're former Tier 1 operators with specific instructions regarding intruders. Your skills are impressive, Jack, but even you can't defeat 6 elite operators simultaneously while protecting Ms. Reed. Jack recognized the tactical reality behind Caldwell's threat. They were outnumbered, outpositioned, with limited extraction options. Even if they neutralized Caldwell, escaping the compound alive was increasingly unlikely. The decision crystallized with sudden clarity. Not surrender, not negotiation, but a third option neither Caldwell nor Victoria had anticipated. Jack shifted position, slightly accessing the concealed transmitter in his jacket pocket. A single press activated the signal that would transmit everything they discovered to Catherine Marsh's secure channels, and simultaneously to selected media outlets worldwide. Caldwell recognized the movement, too late, his expression changing as understanding dawned. What have you done? Ensured that sovereign strike dies with you. Jack's voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who had calculated all variables and accepted the outcome. Even if your embedded agents activate tomorrow, they'll find their command structure decapitated, their operational security compromised, and federal agencies forewarned. It's over, Robert. Caldwell's composure cracked for the first time, genuine rage breaking through the cultivated exterior. You've doomed this country to continuing decay, to weakness and eventual collapse. Everything I've built, everything I've sacrificed, was built on lies and murder. Victoria completed his thought weapon unwavering. On arrogance disguised as patriotism. My husband saw through it, Jack saw through it, and now the world will see through it too. Footsteps in the hallway signaled the security team's return. Jack calculated rapidly. 6 operators, multiple angles of fire, limited cover. Survivable odds, but barely. He exchanged glances with Victoria, silent communication passing between them. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Caldwell saw the exchange, understanding dawning in his eyes. After everything, after all the betrayal and bloodshed, you found someone worth dying for. His laugh held genuine amusement despite the circumstances. How disappointingly conventional of you, Jack. The security team appeared at the entrance, weapons raised awaiting Caldwell's command. The moment balanced on a knife edge of possibility, death capture or some third option not yet visible. Jack prepared himself for whatever came next, knowing only that he would not surrender, would not allow Caldwell's vision of America to supplant the imperfect but worthy reality he'd fought to protect. As tension reached breaking point, an unexpected sound cut through the silence. Helicopter rotors approaching rapidly, too close and too precise for coincidence. Through the study window's powerful searchlights suddenly illuminated the grounds, accompanied by the unmistakable voice of Catherine Marsh, amplified through tactical speakers. Federal agents, the building is surrounded. All personnel, surrender your weapons and exit with hands visible. Confusion rippled through the security team, discipline momentarily shaken by this unexpected development. Caldwell's expression hardened as he calculated new variables, revised strategies, searched for escape routes. You said Marsh was detained. Victoria's smile carried genuine satisfaction as understanding dawned. You lied about everything, didn't you, Ben? The security team in Montana, all of it manipulation because that's all you have left. Caldwell's composure cracked, further desperation replacing calculation. This changes nothing. The operation proceeds regardless. My people are in position. They'll execute with or without direct command. Jack recognized the final desperate gambit of a man seeing his life's work unraveling. One outcome remained. Caldwell would rather die fighting than face justice, would order his security team to resist despite hopeless odds. The resulting firefight would likely kill everyone in the room, leaving critical questions unanswered and key evidence lost. Before Caldwell could give the order, Jack made his move, not toward Caldwell, but toward the nearest security operator. The surprise was complete, Jack disarming the man and using him as shield in one fluid motion. Victoria simultaneously targeted the team leader, her shot precisely placed to disable rather than kill. The momentary advantage was enough for FBI tactical teams to breach the house from multiple entry points, overwhelming the remaining security personnel with superior numbers and positioning. Caldwell, recognizing defeat, reached for a concealed weapon, but found Jack's aim already centered on his chest. It's over, Robert. Jack's voice carried the finality of a eulogy. You lost the moment you threatened my son, the moment you chose power over principle, the moment you forgot that the country you claim to protect is defined by laws, not men. Caldwell's shoulders slumped, the fight draining visibly as FBI agents secured him with tactical restraints. His final words came quietly, meant for Jack alone. You'll understand someday, when the system fails you completely, when everything you've fought for crumbles from within. You'll wish you'd made a different choice today. Jack watched as Caldwell was led away, feeling neither triumph nor satisfaction, only a bone-deep weariness and the pressing need to confirm his son's safety. Catherine Marsh appeared through the tactical chaos, expression grim but eyes conveying silent approval. Ben is safe, Catherine addressed Jack's unspoken question immediately. Atlas never had him. That was Caldwell's manipulation. The Montana safe house remains secure with additional protective details I personally vetted. Relief washed through Jack with physical force, nearly buckling his knees. Victoria steadied him with a hand on his shoulder, her own exhaustion visible beneath professional composure. The intelligence you transmitted saved us, Catherine continued. We've already detained 16 embedded Atlas operatives in key positions. The remaining network is being identified and neutralized. Sovereign strike is finished before it began. In the hours that followed, Jack and Victoria provided formal statements, identified key Atlas personnel from photograph arrays, and connected remaining intelligence fragments into a comprehensive picture of Caldwell's organization. Throughout the debriefing, Jack's focus remained divided. Professional obligations warring with the desperate need to see his son, to confirm with his own eyes that Ben remains safe. Catherine recognized his distraction, finally dismissing him with uncharacteristic gentleness. Go to your son, Mr. Donovan. We can continue this tomorrow. The return to Montana required another 16-hour journey, this time aboard an FBI transport with Victoria beside him. They spoke little during the flight, exhaustion and emotional aftermath creating comfortable silence between them. The partnership forged through crisis had evolved into something neither had anticipated, but both recognized as valuable beyond measure. Dawn broke over Montana wilderness as they approached the safe house, golden light spilling across pine forest and mountain ranges. Jack felt something shift within him as familiar landscape appeared below, not just returning to his son, but perhaps returning home in a deeper sense. Ben awaited on the cabin's porch, launching himself into his father's arms the moment Jack emerged from the transport. Jack held his son tightly, the familiar weight and warmth confirming what words and assurances could not. That despite everything they had survived, They were together. They were safe. Victoria watched from a respectful distance, her own emotions carefully contained behind professional composure. Only when Ben turned towards her, extending one small hand in innocent welcome, did the facade crack slightly. She accepted the gesture with unexpected gentleness, completing a circle that none of them had anticipated when a private jet screamed across Montana sky all those weeks ago. 6 months later, Jack stood on the porch of a new home in Vermont watching Ben construct an elaborate snow fort with neighborhood children. The house, timber and stone built to Jack's exacting specifications, stood on 10 acres of woodland, far from major population centers, but close enough to a small town for Ben to attend school and make friends. Victoria's SUV appeared on the long driveway, a regular Sunday arrival that Ben had come to anticipate with excitement. She emerged carrying files in one hand and a package wrapped in colorful paper in the other. Another educational gift for Ben, who had developed surprising interest in technology and engineering since their ordeal. They moved together through domestic routines that would have seemed impossible months earlier. Coffee prepared exactly as each preferred, comfortable silences, professional updates interspersed with personal observations. Victoria had rebuilt Reed Technologies' security division with a Jack's occasional consultation, while focusing the company's resources on completing David's research for humanitarian applications. Caldwell awaited trial on multiple federal charges, his organization dismantled through coordinated international operations. Atlas assets had been frozen, operatives identified and apprehended, political protections eliminated through careful application of irrefutable evidence. The attempted coup had collapsed before activation, its architects facing justice rather than triumph. Later that evening, after Ben had gone to bed, Jack and Victoria sat before the fireplace, the comfortable silence of people who no longer needed constant conversation to feel connected. "I've been thinking about Montana." Jack's voice was thoughtful as he watched flames consume seasoned oak. "About rebuilding there instead of here." Victoria studied his profile, reading meaning behind the simple statement. "Back to the beginning, where we first met." Jack nodded slowly. "I ran there to hide, to disappear. Maybe it's time to return and actually live instead." Ben misses the lake, the fishing. The unspoken question hung between them, neither quite ready to articulate feelings that had developed gradually over months of shared purpose and mutual respect. Victoria answered it indirectly, her decision already made long before Jack raised the possibility. Reed Technologies is opening a research facility in Bozeman, focusing on search and rescue applications of David's technology. I'll need to be there at least weekly to oversee development. Jack's smile contained understanding of what remained unspoken. We could look at properties. Something with enough land for privacy but close enough to town for Ben's school. And with a guest house, Victoria's question carried significance beyond practical considerations. "For when I'm in town for work." Jack met her eyes, directly acknowledging the careful dance they'd maintained since Caldwell's capture. "Or not a guest house, if that's something you might consider." Victoria's hand found his, the gesture natural after months of gradually decreasing distance. "I've been considering it for some time now, just waiting for you to catch up." The fire crackled in comfortable witness as two people who had found each other through violence and loss contemplated a future built on something stronger than shared trauma. Outside, Vermont winter wrapped the house in pristine silence. Inside, possibilities expanded with each passing moment, not erasing the past, but building something new alongside it. A new beginning. Jack's words named what both felt, but neither had fully articulated until now. For all of us, Victoria's smile held promise rather than certainty, hope rather than guarantee, the only kind of beginning worth having.